Hilchos Beis Habechirah Perek Shvi. The laws of the chosen house, the holy temple, the Beis HaMikdash, chapter 7. We're done talking about the structure, the building of the Beis HaMikdash. Now we're going to talk about today the holiness of the Beis HaMikdash and what that engenders, the commandments that come about because the Mikdash is a holy place. So the first thing is, says the Rambam, mitzvah saseh liyira min hamikdash. There's a positive commandment to fear, to treat the Beis HaMikdash with awe, with reverence. Shenemar, as it says clearly in the Torah, umikdashi tirau. My mikdash you shall fear. But the Rambam right away adds, v'loi min hamikdash ato yarei. You're not supposed to be afraid of the actual building of the Beis HaMikdash. Elo mimi shetziva al yirasei. The idea is to be afraid or to be respectful or to be in awe from the one who commanded about the fear of the Beis HaMikdash. So what's the Rambam saying? Obviously, why would you think that you should be afraid of the building of the Beis HaMikdash? So some commentaries say that Rambam is talking about Avodah Zarah. See, people used to make buildings into idols.
You go to the
Yeah, so if you have this fear of the actual building, you could be making it into a elokut of some sort. You could be making it into a deity. So the Rambam is saying, don't be afraid of the Mikdash, be afraid of Hashem. But it's pretty obvious, especially because the Rambam immediately is going to define what the fear is. The fear looks like in action. Others say that the Rambam is trying to communicate that you shouldn't think the mitzvah only applies when the Beis HaMikdash is there. But when it's not there, let's say, you don't have to be afraid of the place. So the Rambam says, no, you're not. The fear is not from the actual building, the fear is from Hashem, and therefore it applies even after the Churban. The problem with that is that the Rambam says so clearly later. We don't need him to say it twice. So the Rebbe has a very revolutionary approach to this halacha, where he says that fear, in general, when you say somebody has respect or awe or fear of something, it can mean two things. Either it's a feeling, literally a feeling of dread. You walk into somebody's presence, you feel small, you feel afraid. Or it's a respect that expresses itself in action. So the Rebbe, based on two different sources, there's a Gemara and there's a Midrash, the Rebbe says that the Rambam over here is referring to the second category. He's telling you, v'loi min hamikdash ato yarei. The stress is, not that you should be afraid, actually fearful of the Beis HaMikdash. Rather, the relationship of this mitzvah should be with the one who commanded it about the fear. And therefore it should be expressed in actions that bring out this point that you're treating the mikdash with respect. And the Rebbe actually says, Kabbalistically speaking, that's a bigger fear. See, the difference between ahava and yirah, love and fear. Love, you first and foremost feel yourself. You want to be in relationship with the person who you love. Fear means you're not feeling yourself. You're feeling the other person's presence, therefore you respect them, therefore you honor them. Within fear itself, as long as you feel the fear in your heart, there's a little bit of self-centeredness. The minute you say the fear is only expressing itself in action, you've totally removed yourself from the picture. I'm just doing what the person wants. And therefore it's the ultimate type of yira. As the Rambam explains, the ezahi yirasai, halacha beis, what is the fear? Or how do you express this fear, this respect in action? Lo yikanis adam lahar habayis. This is the Har HaBayis, the Temple Mount, the whole plaza. A person should not go in to this plaza b'makloi, with a regular walking stick, oy b'minol sheberaglov, or wearing leather shoes on his feet, oy ba'afundasai, or wearing afundasai, either means a type of shirt that was worn like for kind of casual purposes, or it means just underwear, like shorts, kind of a thing. Oy ba'avak shal raglov, nor should you go in with dust on your feet. Nor should you go in with money that's tied in a kerchief. When you come into the Holy Temple Mount, it should be just yourself in an honorable way. Needless to say, it's forbidden to spit anywhere on the Temple Mount. It's not a sign of respect. Ella, rather, if saliva comes to your mouth and you have to spit, swallow it into your clothing, kind of spit into your sleeve. Don't spit on the ground. Another way you express the respect, v'lo yasa har habayis derech. Don't make the Temple Mount into a shortcut. Sheyikanis mi pesach zu, v'yetze mi pesach shekinegda, kedei lekatzer haderech. You're going to come in on one entrance and go out the other entrance just to make the way shorter. Right? This is Temple Mount. You're on one side of Yerushalayim over here. You come into this gate and you take a walk, and boom, you're on the other side. You made it into a shortcut. You can't use the Temple Mount as a shortcut. Elo yakifei mi bachutz. If you have to, you go around. If you don't need the Temple Mount,
reason is-
it's respect. The only reason you should be going into the Temple Mount is if you have a mitzvah to be done. Halacha Gimel, another way to show respect, anybody who goes in to the Temple Mount, they go into their right. So here we have the arrow person goes in. The first thing is you take a right. You go towards your right. Now, even though here you're going to end up taking a left, but if you think about it, if you're standing here, going this way is towards your right. It's moving your body towards the right. So you go in, umakifin v'yotzin derech shmol, and you go all the way around, and you come out towards your left. Chutz mimi she'erei davar, except for somebody who had something tragic happen to him, shehu makif ala shmol. He used to go to the left, and therefore everybody would know that something bad happened. They would comfort him. Leficha chayushaylna, they would ask him, malacha makif ala shmol, why are you going towards the left? Shahani ovel. He would say, oh, because I'm a mourner. Then the person would respond, Hashechen bebayis hazeh yenachamecha. The God who rests in this house should come for you. A person might say, Shani menuda. I'm ostracized. The rabbis put me in chayren. So then the response would be, Hashechen bebayis hazeh. May God who dwells in this house, yitin bilvavcha, put it into your heart, inspire you. V'tishma ledivrei chaverecha v'yikarvucha. You should listen to the words of your friend, and they'll bring you close. In other words, the point is, by physically demonstrating going to the left, you would show that something's up, and people could give you blessings, comfort, and inspiration. Halacha Daled, here's another expression of respect. Kol shehishlim avoda v'nistalik le. Any Kohen who's in the temple here, let's say, and finished his work and he's leaving. Eina yotzei v'achirav laheichol. You don't go out with your back to the temple structure. Ela mehalech achiranis ma'at ma'at. You walk backwards, little by little. U'mehalech benachas al tzidai. And then walk calmly on your side. Ad sheyetzei mino azara, until you leave the temple courtyard. So maybe this picture is a bit inaccurate because they have their backs to the temple structure. But the point is, when you leave the structure, you don't have your back. Even today, many people use this law for shuls or for holy places, for their own kodesh. You back out of it, you don't turn your back to it. V'chein anshe mishmar v'anshe maimet. So too, the Kohanim who were on the weekly watch from the mishmar, and the Jews who were from the maimet, that's the representative of the Israelite Jews who would come when the sacrifices were being brought, they would pray for the Jewish people. Ulevim miduchanim, and the Levites when they were performing on the platform and singing, kach hem yotzim min hamikdash. That's the way they should leave the temple. Kimisha poseya achar tefillah la'achayrav, like somebody who was backing out of the davening, right? When we finish Shmona Esrei, we back up 3 steps back. Kol zeh leyira min hamikdash. All of this is the basic way to express fear for the Holy Temple. Again, fear expressed in actions. Now, as the Rebbe explains it, the Rambam adds another dimension. Although the basic mitzvah is to act in ways that show respect, there's also room to have that affect your heart as well and feel the reverence. Lo yakil adam esroishai keneged shar mizrachi shal azara. When you are facing the eastern gate of the azara, shahu shar nikoner, that's the nikoner's gate, you should not be acting lightheadedly. And this is true whether you're here in the Ezras Nashim facing the gate, or you're even outside, you're anywhere aligned with the gate, no behaving jokingly. Because that's directly opposite the Holy of Holies. Additionally, anybody who comes into the temple courtyard should only walk slowly, calmly, no rushing, in a place where you're allowed to walk. You should see yourself as though you're standing in front of Hashem. As it says, my eyes and my heart are there all the days. In other words, I'm always focused. You walk with awe, with fear, with trembling. Shenemar says in Tehillim, in the house of God, we walk with fervor, we walk with emotion, we walk with feeling. This is the additional dimension where you could actually feel some of the reverence. Here's another expression of respect. It's forbidden for any person to sit in the entire temple courtyard. This azara over here, forbidden to sit. The only person who's allowed to sit in the azara is a king from the house of David. The kingdom later on split. There was Malchei David and Malchei Israel. The kings of Israel were not allowed to sit in the azara. Only kings from the Davidic dynasty. Shenemar, as it says, Vayavai HaMelech David, Vayeshev Lifnei Hashem. The King David came in and he sat in front of Hashem. Only he sat, nobody else. Even though we know that the high court used to sit in the chamber of the cut stone, where they would sit in the Beis HaMikdash, says that Rambam lehayu yoshvin ela bechetzia shel chayil. They would only sit in the half that was in the outside. We saw the other day, this is Lishkas HaGazis, it's half inside the temple area, half outside. Where they were sitting was the area that was outside of the temple structure. The Rebbe has a very interesting letter where he asks the question, what about Kohanim? We know that certain sacrifices could only be eaten in the Azara. But if nobody can sit in the Azara, did the Kohanim sit when they ate? Or did they stand when they ate? Could very well be, based on this Rambam, they had to stand when they ate. Nobody was allowed to sit besides for a king. On the other hand, the Rebbe says it could be that no, eating is more of a human act and you should sit while you eat. It's derech eretz. And the reason why the Rambam didn't write it is because he doesn't write novel laws if he doesn't have to. But there's a debate whether Kohanim would actually sit or stand when they would eat sacrificial meat. Halacha Zayin says the Rambam, the point you mentioned earlier about the Churban. Even though, because of our sins today, the temple is destroyed, a person is obligated to fear it the same way he would behave with it when it was built. You're only allowed to go into a place where it's permitted to go in. This is why today many avoid going to the Temple Mount. You shouldn't sit in the area where the temple courtyard was. And don't behave lightheadedly when you're facing the area of the eastern gate. Shanemar, because it says in the very same verse we quoted before, as Shabsoisai Tishmeiru Umigdashi Tiro. Torah puts it together. Guard Shabbos and fear the temple. Why does it put it together? It's two random things seemingly. Mash midas Shabbos la'ilam, af meira mikdash la'ilam. We learn from this, the same way we guard Shabbos forever, we have to fear the temple forever. Sha'afal pisha chadav bikdushasai oimed, even though it's been destroyed, it retains its initial holiness. Halacha ches, bizman sha'am mikdash banoi. When the temple was built, this is a special law that applies only back then, asur le'la adam lahakel es reishay min hatzofim. It was forbidden to act jokingly the moment you came to Tzofim. Tzofim is Mount Scopus. This is supposed to be an illustration where you're on the mountain, coming towards the temple. Already when you're on the mountain, Tzofim means you can see, because on this mountain you're able to already see the Harabayas. So when you're there, already, no behaving jokingly. Shehu chutz l'Yerushalayim v'lifnim. The moment you're outside of Jerusalem going inwards, this law applies. This only applies if you can directly see the holy temple. Nor was there a fence between you and the temple. But again, nowadays, this doesn't apply, only the actual area of the Beis HaMikdash. Halacha tes, this is how far fear of the Mikdash extends. Asur la'adam la'olam, it's always forbidden for a person sheyipane, to go to the bathroom, solid waste, oy sheyishan, or to sleep, bein mizrach l'mayrav, between east and west. Your bed cannot be aligned east-west. It has to be aligned north-south. And when you're in the bath, your bed, in your home. This law, according to many authorities, doesn't apply today. Needless to say, you shouldn't set up a bathroom between east and west in any place, because the temple is in the west. And again, here too, many authorities say it doesn't apply today because our bathrooms are enclosed in our homes. They're not like even an outhouse. They're not a separate entity. They're just part of the home. Doesn't really matter. But in the Rambam's times, it certainly applied. Therefore, you shouldn't go to the bathroom facing west nor facing east, because that's corresponding to the west. You should go to the bathroom and sleep aligned north and south. Anybody that urinates from Tzofim, from Mount Scopus inwards, should never sit with his front facing the holy. Either turn to the north or south, or remove the holy to the side. In other words, don't align yourself straight, be off to the side from the temple structure. Halacha Yud, another measure of respect. It's forbidden for a person to construct his house with the same measurements and shape as the Heichal structure. It's forbidden to make a patio, like over pergola, in the shape of the ulam, the antechamber to the Heichal. It's forbidden to shape your courtyard in the way of the Azara temple courtyard. Shulchan b'tzuras shulchan, u'meneira b'tzuras meneira. It's forbidden to make a shulchan, a table like the table in the temple, a meneira in the same way of the temple, but only in the same exact way. You can make a meneira with 5 branches, with 8 branches. a menorah she'eina shel mateches af al pi sheyesh la shiva kanim, or a menorah which doesn't have, which is not metal, even if it has 7 branches, has to be an exact imitation, carbon copy of the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. Halacha Yud Aleph. Shalish machanais hayu bamidbar. Back in the desert, there were 3 camps. Machane Yisrael v'hu arba machanes. There was the outer camp, the camp of the Jewish people, made up of 4 distinct camps of the tribes. Umachane Levia, and there was the tribe of Levi, Shanem Arba v'saviv la Mishkan yachanu, where it says they would camp right around the Mishkan. That's the orange here. Umachane Shechina, and then there was what's called the Shechina's camp, v'hu mi Pesach chatzara yel moyed v'lifnim, from the opening of the courtyard to the Mishkan and inwards. Ukenegdan l'doiros. So for all generations, corresponding to them in Jerusalem, we also had 3 elements. Pesach Yerushalayim ad harabayis k'machane Yisrael. From the opening of Jerusalem until the Temple Mount. So let's say for over here, everything around the Temple Mount, all of Jerusalem over here, till the harabayis is k'machane Yisrael, is like the Jewish camp. Omi Pesach harabayis at Pesach ha'azara shushar nikaner. From the opening of the Temple Mount. If we use this picture again. From the opening of the Temple Mount till the opening of the courtyard, the Azara. Nikaner's gate, K'machane Levia. That's like the Levi's camp. And once you're in the courtyard and the actual temple structure, that's Machane Shechina, that's the Shechina's camp. Having the chel, this open area over here, right around the Beis HaMikdash. And the whole women's court was an additional level that was in the Beis HaMikdash, but doesn't have a corresponding feature in the Mishkan. So having said that, the Rambam now goes through a list of the progressive levels of holiness in Israel. Halacha Yud Beis, Kol Eretz Yisrael, Mikudeshes Mikol Ha'aratzos. The entirety of Israel is holier than all other lands. So if you compare a globe to the land of Israel, the entirety of the land of Israel is holier than all the lands. The Rebbe once pointed out why it says the whole land of Israel, Kol, is to hint to you that all the regions, we had different halachot, different regions of Israel, 3 regions. All the regions together have the same holiness in comparison to other lands. Umahi kedushasa. What is the holiness? In what is the holiness expressed? Shemevi'in mimena, that we bring from there, ha'omer, the barley for the korban omer, the omer offering, ushte halechem, and the 2 breads on Shavuos, the habikurim, and the first fruits, which we bring from Shavuos and on. Masha'ein mevin kain mishar aratzos, which cannot be brought from any other land. Somebody once asked the Rebbe, how come the Rambam changes the order? In the source, in the Mishnah, and in the Midrash, it says Omer, then Bikurim, then Shtei Alechem. The Rambam switches Omer, Shtei Alechem, Bikurim. And the Rebbe wrote back to him because the Rambam is a practical book. And as a practical book, he writes to you the order of practical things. Omer was on Pesach, Shtei Alechem was on Shavuot, Bikurim was after Shavuot. So it goes in order of the year. Anyway, that's Israel relative to the rest of the world. Now, in Israel itself, says the Rambam, Eser Kedushes Hein Be'eretz Yisrael. Within Israel, there's 10 levels of holiness. V'zu l'mayla mizu. One going higher than the other. And it begins like this. Ayares ha'mukafes chayma, mikudashes mishar haaretz. So if the entire land has one level of holiness, walled cities are holier than the rest of the land. Why are they, or in what way are they holier? Shemishalchin mitoichan es hametzoyrayim. Here's a walled city. If somebody has tzaras, he has to leave the walled city. Ve'ein koivrin b'soichan meis ad sheyirtzu shiva tuvei ha'ir or kolan she'ha'ir. And you cannot bury anybody in a walled city unless the 7 best people in the city board, so to speak, or everybody, if there's no board, everybody has to agree, then they can bury somebody inside the city. Additionally, v'im yatsa ha'meis chutz la'ir ein machzirin oisei l'seicha afal pi she'rotzu kolan la'achzirah. If a dead body leaves the city, he's carried out in a coffin, you can't bring him back even if everybody agrees. Similarly, if people in the city agree to remove an existing grave in the city, they can take it out. You can take out any grave from a walled city unless it's a prophet or a king. If a grave was surrounded by a city, in other words, the grave was there before, and they built the walled city around it, whether from all 4 sides or from 2 sides at least parallel, if there was 50 amas to both sides, to both walls that are around it, we cannot remove it unless everybody agrees. If it's less than that, you can remove it. In other words, the point is that the walled city is considered holier in that we don't want to keep graves or people that are impure inside it. That's the second level. So you have all the land, the basic level, then you have walled cities. Next, says the Rambam Halacha Yudalid, Yerushalayim mikudeshes misharo ayares hamukafes chayma. Jerusalem is next level up. Level 3. It's holier than all other cities that are walled. In which you can eat lighter level sacrifices and the second tithe inside its wall. Along with this list, this is the list of things that were said about Yerushalayim. We don't leave a dead body there overnight. Everybody gets buried on the day. We don't carry through Yerushalayim bones of a human. We don't rent houses in Jerusalem. Could you imagine? You're not supposed to make business. Today, I don't know how that works, but you're not supposed to rent houses. We don't let even a guy who keeps the 7 Noahide laws, who's allowed to live in Israel, cannot live in Jerusalem. We don't leave any graves in it, besides for the graves of the house of David and the grave of Huldah the prophet, who were there from the days of the early prophets. Har HaZeitim is full of graves. Today this has been adjusted. But ideally, Yerushalayim was not a home for graves at all. We don't plant any gardens or orchards. You don't plant there, you don't plow there, you don't want the land to become spoiled. We don't let trees grow there. Except for the famous rose garden that was there from the days of the early prophets. We don't keep garbage piles there for long. We don't want bugs or insects to accumulate. You're not allowed to extend balconies or porches or ledges to the public domain so as not to create a roof where tuma can transfer. No furnaces are allowed. It makes too much smoke. No roosters or chickens can be grown there because holy articles, holy things can become impure. They peck around, they touch things, and it makes problems. Neither should koyanim raise chickens anywhere in Israel because of purity problems. Houses can never become fully sold there, as we saw in the end of the last book, that if you sell a house in a walled city, after a year it becomes the purchaser's, not in Yerushalayim. Houses in Jerusalem cannot become impure with tzaras. It cannot become a persuaded city. Way back in the Rambam's first book, a whole city can be convinced to serve idols, not Yerushalayim.
They need to burn the house?
No, it doesn't have the tumah. Even if tzaras comes, you don't burn the house down. You don't destroy it. It also does not bring the chopped calf. That's going to be, we'll see it in the Rambam's 10th book, that if somebody is found murdered and you don't know who killed them, the closest city has to bring a calf. And there's a whole procedure that you do with it, not Yerushalayim. The reason for all these things is because it was never divided amongst the tribes. Halacha Tezvav, within Jerusalem, now level 4, Har HaBayis mekudash mimena. The Temple Mount is holier than the rest of Israel. She'ein zavin the rest of Jerusalem. She'ein zavin v'zavais niders v'yolders nichnasim l'sham. These people that are impure because of a bodily discharge, either a man venereal discharge, a woman who has an irregular blood flow, a menstruating woman, a birthing woman, cannot go in. However, a dead body can go into the Temple Mount, and a person who is impure by touching a dead body could also go into the Temple Mount. Halacha Tezayin, level 5 now. The area surrounded by the Seireg, this little rectangular area, inside it, between it and the wall of the Azara, is called the Chel. The Chel is holier than the rest of the Har HaBayis. If you're a non-Jew, a person who has become impure from a corpse, or you've had relations with a woman who was on her period, you cannot go in past this little fence into the Chel. Level 6, Ezras Hanashim Mikudeshas Min HaChel. The women's court is holier than the Chel. If somebody went to the mikveh, but he's still waiting for the sun to set to complete his purity, cannot go in there. This is a prohibition rabbinically. Biblically speaking, a person who's waiting for the sun to set after mikveh could go in to this area. And if a person was impure from a corpse and went into the Ezras Nashim, even though he shouldn't have, he's not obligated to bring a sacrifice to atone for it. Yudches, Ezras Yisrael mekudeshes me Ezras Nashim. The Israelite courtyard is even holier. This is the Israelite courtyard we saw yesterday, the first strip of the temple courtyard, right here. She'ein mechusar kippurim nichnas l'sham. Somebody who still needs to bring a sacrifice to complete his purity cannot go in there. The tamish nichnas l'sham chayav kares. At this point, if somebody is impure, goes into this area, he gets excision. Halacha yutes Ezras hakoyanim mikudeshes mimena. The Kohen's courtyard. Oh, skip this part here. Here it is. The Kohen's courtyard, this little strip here, is holier than the Israelite courtyard. She'ein Yisrael nichnasim l'sham ela b'shas tzorcheiam. A regular Jew cannot go in there unless he needs to do something there. L'smicha, l'kapara, l'shchita, l'tnufa, maybe to lean on a sacrifice, to achieve atonement, to slaughter a sacrifice, to wave a sacrifice. If you don't have to be there, you shouldn't be there. Chaf beino ulam b'la mizbeach mekudash mimena. The area between the antechamber and the mizbeach, this strip over here, is even holier than the Kohanic area. She'ein ba'ali mumin u'pruei reish u'kruei b'gadim nichnasim l'sham. Even if you're a Kohen, but if you have a blemish, or you have long hair, or your clothing is torn, you cannot go in there. The temple structure is even holier than the area between the ulam and the mizbeach. You can only go in there if you've washed your hands and feet as a Kohen. Beis, of course, Beis Kodesh HaKodashim, Mekudash Mimenu. The holiest is the Holy of Holies. The only person who can go in there is the high priest on Yom Kippur during the service. Even if he goes on Yom Kippur, not in the service time, that's forbidden. He can only go in there on Yom Kippur during service. Chav Gimel, Makim Shahaya Ba'aliyah. Mechuvan al Kodesh HaKodashim. There was a second story right above the Kodesh HaKodashim here. You can only go in once every 7 years to check what's needed for repairs. And the Rebbe says this does not mean that it's holier. Even though until now we measured holiness by who can go in, the fact that you only go in once every 7 years isn't a higher level of holiness, it's just practical. And how would they do repairs? When the builders used to go in to build or to repair the heichal, or to remove impure things, mitzvah sheyu hanichnasim kohanim tmimim. Ideally, we look for kohanim that are unblemished, perfect body kohanim. Lo matzu tmimim yikansu bali women. If they didn't find anybody like that, you can bring a blemished kohen. V'mein sham kohanim yikansu leviim, lo matzu leviim yikansu Yisrael. If there's no available kohanim, bring a Levi. No available Levi, bring a regular Jew. Mitzvah b'tahayrim. Ideally, you should get a ritually pure person. Lo matzu tahayrim yikansu tmeim. If there's nobody pure, bring in somebody impure. Tameyu balmum, yikanis balmum. Whether if you only have an impure person versus a blemished person, rather the blemished person who is pure should come in, ba'al yikanis tame, and not the impure person. Sha'atuma d'chuya b'tzibur, because impurity is pushed away when dealing with the community. A final law: if you go into anywhere in the holy area to fix, yikansu b'teves. You go in with a box, like this guy in the box. We don't want him to have to see what's going on around him. If there are no boxes or they can't work in a box, they can go right in by way of the entrance, and that's not a problem as long as you're doing it with the purpose to fix the holy temple.